Welcome to Meet the Musician, a series in which I asked 5 independent musicians a load of questions to dive into their musical journey. What motivates them, inspires them, what is their process, why do they even do this, and what does success look like? In today's episode, we're going to speak to Doug. Doug is the only fellow Brit in the series. He makes ambient drone music from down in Witney near Oxford, and he has a really unique method and way of writing his music. He is also a gear and pedal fiend with particular preference for the masters over at Chase Bliss Audio. Grab a drink, take an easy chair, and let's settle in to hear from Doug. Great to finally meet you, albeit virtually, after sort of speaking to each other for a lengthy period of time now over on, mainly on Instagram, I think, actually, and YouTube as well. So thanks for joining us on the channel. Tell us all about yourself, who you are, where you're from, and what you do.
I live in Witney, Oxfordshire. I'm a gardener. Been a gardener for 20 odd years now. I wanted to make music for years and years, and I sort of dipped my toe into it over the years from about 1993 onwards. Did a bit, stopped, did a bit, buy a house, have kids, stop, and all of that kind of thing. But it's only now that I actually think that's really what I want to be doing. And well, not for a living, but just more in my spare time doing that and devoting more time to that.
What sort of music do you make, Doug? For anyone that's watching that doesn't know about
the artist's name is 9 is the Level. The name relates to a family joke that goes back until about 1982. So I won't explain that too much because no one else will get it. Musically, I make sort of ambient, dark ambient music with the odd post-rock bit, the odd shoegazy bit, lots of drone, lots of ambient, soundscape, cinematics, that sort of stuff. And I've made 4 EPs and 1 compilation album, which is a compilation of all of them, but I'd have voice samples of my granddad in quite a lot of them. So the compilation album, I remixed it and took all the voices out, so it's just the music.
So let's just rewind then. I think when we're children, we're not brought up on a healthy dose of ambient music at nursery and primary school. So what led you to making this sort of music or having a passion for this sort of music?
In all honesty, I found it easier to make than other music because I just had so many pedals and you could just play one note and bada bing. It's all in the manipulation of the pedals. I just found that a lot easier because I'm not a particularly good guitarist. I can't really do anything on keys. So that was my savior, really, just to be able to play the pedal. I think that was really important to me. But growing up, it was like I went through Iron Maiden phases, Queen phases. My dad used to love Thin Lizzy, Judas Priest. We grew up on Blondie, Equals, all sorts of music. My mum used to love Dr. Hook, which I absolutely hate to this day. But then we had all sorts of hip hop phases. And I think I really got serious about music in about 91, 92. When I was 16 and just got into things like Slow Dive and the early Boo Radleys was really good. Just a lot of shoegaze stuff and it all kind of went from there. So it was that kind of slow attack, reverse reverb, which I really sort of been obsessed with that for 25 years really.
Yeah.
And it all kind of went from there.
Yeah, really interesting. I can't hear any Iron Maiden in your music, Doug.
No, I try and keep it away. It's dying to get out, but I'm just trying to keep it at bay.
The pedals are your instruments, really.
Yeah, without a doubt. I used to play the violin, and I think that really put me off in a lot of ways because I used to have to do all the different keys, and I had to do the scales for everything. Practicing for hours every night.
Yeah,
I think I got up to about grade 3 and thought, oh God, this is just too painful. So I switched to guitar because no violinists ever get a girlfriend. So I switched to guitar. Still didn't get a girlfriend anyway. But
so your main fundamental instrument are your pedals, which I think is really cool. Yeah. What are your pedals of choice, Doug? Without going like down the whole list, what? Because I know Chase Bliss Audio is a pedal brand that you're deep into, and I stare at your pictures and videos semi-jealously very often. But having had quite a few Chase Bliss pedals, and then subsequently sort of sold them to get another one because they're not cheap. What was it about that brand in particular that made you want to get into them in a deep way?
So in the first place, I was first few pedals I got an Electro Harmonics Pulsar because I wanted a tremolo pedal, and it was fine, perfectly good. But then I was just looking around and I just wanted something with lots and lots of knobs. I think that was I just wanted a pedal with stacks of knobs. And then you see the knobs video of the Gravitas, and then he did a little thing where it was because you got this kind of the ramping that they do And there was one which was like a slow attack and then a abrupt end to the tremolo, and it was sounded like a reverse reverb. And I thought, oh, that sounds so fantastic on the knobs video. So I bought the Gravitas back in 2015. That was my first one that I bought.
Yeah.
And it just sounded fantastic. It was a total revelation that even without turning it on, it felt like it made me sound better. That's kind of where it all started. Lots of knobs, lots of options, and just sounding like the core sound is just really, really good. Pedals that I use all the time, there's a sort of a mixture of blooper and mood, and then they go out to the stereo spread of the CXM for the reverb. But those three, I've used those on all of my records since the start. It was mood, blooper, and then CXM came out and I put that in there as well.
With the Chase Bliss, and again, Doug, anyone watching that's not bought a Chase Bliss pedal or owned a Chase Bliss pedal or whatever, watch the knobs video or whatever on Chase Bliss. They're super, super deep pedals. So you've got all your functionality, got lots of knobs, right? Which is ticking your box, show. Lots of functionality on the top end, but then the back end, you've got all your ramping capabilities on the back. So do you like to go deep into the functionality on each of the pedals?
When it suits me or when I'm in the mood, then yes, I do. But otherwise, there's so much going on the top that you don't necessarily have to.
Yeah.
And the way I think about the dip switches is it's always just the same as you twisting a knob that way. It just does it automatically for you when you sort of put the switch down at the back.
Yeah.
And that makes it much more palatable,
yeah,
easy to understand. If instead of you twiddling a knob, the little switch does it for you at the back and you just assign it to it and then it does it. So
yeah,
that mentality really helped.
Yeah, it's like a built-in expression pedal.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And you can set the sort of how far it goes, how quickly it goes, and all of that kind of thing. So once you got the concept, it felt really easy. But with something like Dark World, it's a relatively simple pedal compared to, say, Habit or Blooper. Yeah. So you can ramp certain things and it makes a nice palatable difference, whereas you can ramp certain things on, say, Blooper and you think, how the hell did I manage to do that?
Yeah.
But the principle's the same throughout.
Yeah, and I've purposely not watched anything on Habit because I was scared what would happen if I did. So how are you finding that?
Fantastic. I think it can just be as simple as you want it to be. It can just be as in-depth as you want it to be. I find it incredibly inspiring just because you've got this 3-minute buffer. So you play for 3 minutes and then it repeats what you've just played. Yeah. So the first time I used it, I just pressed one note on my Casio keyboard for 3 minutes. So that's like your bass sound. And then you just add bits over the top, just very sparingly. And then after sort of 12, 15 minutes, you get this sort of composition, which I made a load of mistakes on, but it's very easy to sort of build stuff up with that. Yeah. And that's what, without touching any modifiers, it's just using it as a 3-minute buffer. That's brilliant idea. That was a Knobs design one. That was his first pedal that he did from the start, wasn't it? From ground up. Yeah. And it is so inspired and very clever, really clever. But I just love it because it can just be as simple or as nuts as you want it to be.
I guess at that point, sort of 15 minutes into looping multiple parts and adjusting the parameters on those parts, you end up with, I again, not played it, but I assume you're going to end up with bits of music that are totally unique, and they're purely unique because of the pedal, essentially.
Yeah, exactly. Because you wouldn't be able to replicate it any other way but by doing that. And then if you use a modifier to fiddle about with it, and one of the knobs actually brings back old bits that you played that you'd have forgotten about, and that adds it into the mix as well. So then it's like it's an evolving,
like a random.
And it just throws it back in when you think, oh, I forgot I did that, and then has it
got modifiers built in like the Blooper where you press the
it has so I'm looking at it now, but what's here? But you've got 3 on either side, so it's like 6 modifiers. Some of them are on Blooper as well, like the smooth speed, like the tape stop sort of sound, and others are new to that. So if you can get Blooper, then you can get this quite easily. It follows on, and it's one of the principle is really similar.
I think another feature, Doug, again, for anyone that's not heard any of your music yet, and I can see a reel-to-reel behind your right shoulder, I think, in the corner.
Yeah, that one doesn't work.
Oh, it doesn't work. You've blown the illusion. A lot of your stuff sounds analog. It sounds warm. It's very different than a lot of music that you hear. Is that an intentional decision?
I do route everything through. I've got a Tascam 4-track or 6-track, I think, So I routed everything through that for the last EP, but the two before that, I just put it all through the preamp of the reel-to-reel. So you do get that analog feel. You do get a bit of hiss coming with it, but you can sort of EQ that out. But I also put restrictions in my way where I only use 8 tracks.
Right.
So I'm a cheapskate, so I've only got like Ableton Lite.
Lots to be said for it.
I've only got 8 tracks, which is, and my laptop is falling apart and it's about 12 years old. So we can't deal with any more than 8 tracks.
Okay.
So
but Doug, you have got 15 Chase Bliss pedals, so you're hardly too limited, are you?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, they help me out no end. But just the routing everything through the tape player, that helps just give you that warmth. Wouldn't otherwise get going straight out of a pedal.
That sort of option paralysis is a big thing for a lot of people these days because there's just so much choice to, I run Logic Pro X. I've got a whole Waves package of, I could mix a song for you and spend like 6 years doing it because I could just try one of 800 different plugins for every single part. If you're not careful, you get bored of what you've made before you end up releasing it. In fact, ironically, that's why we haven't been far from prolific in releasing stuff because of that problem, really. So it's really interesting that you limit yourself to that.
But my way of thinking is I use Ableton. I kicked against it for ages. Now I was sending emails to Knobs saying, I don't want to do it through the laptop. What else can I do? What other options have I got? Well, we haven't really got that many. But once I actually took the plunge, I just wanted to use the software as a 4-track, as a tape 4-track. When I made my first sort of solo music, if you like, in about the early 2000s, it was just me, guitars, a little drum machine on a 4-track, a cassette 4-track. So I just had the same mentality of using it as a 4-track. So I don't use any plugins, I don't use any compression, I don't use anything like that. So it's purely just recording without messing about with stuff I don't understand. I have been doing some other stuff recently.
All right.
Effectively, 9 is the level is finished now. I'm not doing anything else. I'm not recording anything else.
Why is it finished?
I think it's sort of lasted its course. The reason I started it in the first place was using my granddad's samples that he recorded on a reel-to-reel. I remember doing it. I remember hearing him, and I contributed to some of them, in about 1982. We just found a load of tapes. We digitized them, and then I used them, just put music around it. So the whole concept of 9 is the level was to do with this family joke in the first place.
Right.
Using his voice, because he was a really lonely man for many years. He used to record himself listening to the radio, watching TV, looking out the window, all those sorts of things, and he used to record himself. So it was like a real family personal project. Yeah. It sort of moved on, and then I went on to using dictaphones in the third EP instead of reel-to-reel stuff, which was brilliant. I just bought a job lot of dictaphone tapes which still had stuff on them, and it was just fascinating. You just got this insight into other people's lives. It was absolutely fascinating. So I used quite a lot of that on the Remnants EP. Yeah. But then on the Traces, on the last one, I wanted it to be, the musically, I think is the best that I've done. And then John Hicks, who lives next door, he's a designer, so he did the cover, and each song is named after each of my grandparents. And he put a photograph. He just found a load of old photos, and we made this fantastic cover out of it. So that feels like the high water mark. It feels like it's come full circle. Yeah. And it's time to sort of draw a line under that. I've still got to flog some records, but I'm not making any new music as 9 is the level. Okay. But I have started something else, but
all right. Well, we'll come to what you started in a bit. That's interesting. I didn't know that. So
yeah, no one knows that.
I think when I first heard, is it Crumbs? Is it you with you?
Yeah.
I think when I first heard that, and then I think after it, I messaged you and you messaged back saying it was the story behind it, the context behind it. It just added a whole nother layer to what you hear, because you suddenly realize this isn't put on. This is a guy that, I obviously didn't know your granddad, but this was a guy that is, to use your words, was really lonely for a long period of time. And it's funny because what you're hearing is upbeat generally and very descriptive and of its time, but it's kind of it feels as a listener quite tinged with sadness at the same time.
Stopped the tape, and then however many days later started it up again, and he said Crumbs. That was the first thing he said. So he said we need some cheering up, or whatever it was that he said. And then on the vinyl copy, I he was talking about a football match in 1990 against Leicester.
Yeah.
So I found the original program for the match and copied that. So that's included with the vinyl. And he also spoke about England against France in the Five Nations, as it was then. So I got a copy of that program and copied that. So they're in with the vinyl.
Amazing.
And I hand typed all the sleeve notes and
hugely personal then, the whole
thing. It is. I think you've got to put the effort in. You've got to put the graft in to make it special. Each cover has a different photo on the front. So I just bought a job lot of old photos.
Yeah.
I couldn't find any family ones. So I just bought 200 old photos of various different things. I didn't know who they were, where they came from, and some of them were lovely. So each cover has a different photo on the front, so they're all slightly different, which I really like that idea as well.
And just for the people that again don't know about 9 is the 11 Dog, where can they find you? Where can they listen to music? Where can they buy music from you from?
I'm on Bandcamp, so 9 is the level on Bandcamp. If you live in Oxfordshire or you're near Whitney, I'm stocked in the local record shop, Truck in Whitney. But yeah, mainly it's through Bandcamp. Or I would just say, send me a message and I'll send you out a cheaper copy so I don't charge any fees. So it's, just get in touch with me directly on Instagram as well. So
without revealing Doug stuff that you don't necessarily want to, what's your, what sort of course are you headed in musically next?
I've kind of stopped creating new things. And I'm talking about this side project. That was all the stuff that I didn't use because my way of recording was I would just go at it. And then I'd have a 10-minute rule. So if nothing happened within 10 minutes, just put it down and walk away.
Okay.
And then come back to it. And if something did happen, it normally happens within the first 10 minutes. So if I get a good loop or I get something decent happen, then I just stick with it. I always play everything in the same key, same time signature. So you can just cobble it all together, pick what works, what doesn't work quite so well. And then you just piece it together afterwards. But it's all got the same mood to it because it's all in the same session effectively. Anyway, so this new project, we're just using the stuff that was discarded. It wasn't deemed fitting, but is also good enough to release.
So you're editing more, maybe producing stuff.
I'm actually probably doing the opposite, whereas because of my first EP, Oscillations, one of the songs, Pylons, was 10 minutes, 17 seconds long. And then you can't play it on, I think it's Amazon or whatever, because they don't do anything over 10 minutes.
Right.
So the ones after that, I just did 9:59, 9:57, just so it would be streamed and played as it's sort of meant to be. For these ones, I'm just thinking sod it, and one of them's 20 minutes long, one of them's 15 minutes long. So I'm not restricting myself to time. I'm just doing it for fun. When I do release it, I'm not going to tell anybody. I'm not telling anybody the name. I'm just going to put it out there and see what happens. Because promoting don't like the whole promotion side of it, where it's like, you've got to keep going on about it. So I'm just going to get it mastered, release it, not tell anyone, and then I've done my job and I'll leave it at that.
Again, we could talk all day about that as well. So in fact, one of the questions is about that. Talked a little bit about you've talked a lot about your creative process actually, which is really interesting. 10-minute rule. Never heard of that one before.
Yeah, that was an absolute staple. 10 minutes. Time yourself, 10 minutes, forget it if it doesn't happen.
You time yourself. You've got a timer next to you.
Well, it's like just on your watch. It's just you look at your watch.
Why did you come up with that?
Because that's just when the good stuff happened within that 5 to 10 minute window. And if it's not going to happen then, it probably isn't. You're just going to force it. And that's just pointless.
So you talked to us, Doug, about your sort of inspiration. You've covered off my questions off here. Inspiration for your music, which is again very personal, and I think a great story for anyone that's interested in you and your music. I think a great story to understand that there is some sort of deep. Well, there's a lot of deep meanings behind it. And not only the music, but also the way you've packaged it, presented it to, someone that can listen and consume your music, buy your music.
I run my own business and it's just me working. Yeah. And everyone always says, oh no, you should employ other people. And, that could expand the business, but I don't want anyone else doing my work. You know what I mean? I want to be doing it. So that sort of personal level of service that I provide to my customers through work is what I want to do with the music as well. It's sort of about me. I'm kind of laying a lot of stuff out there on my sort of family stuff. And so it's just me, and I want to do everything. I want to. And
is that just because the subject matter and the inspiration has been so personal?
Yeah, it's just a really personal, the whole project is really, really personal. So aside for doing the design, which I've got no idea how to do. And I actually obviously had to get help for that. And my brother did the first 2 EPs. He did Oscillations. He went to a shop in Brighton and just found a load of old slides and one of the slides was the cover, or the cover and the back cover. And on Crumbs, you did the lettering behind the photo, so it's like a stretched out 9 is the level there on that sort of, it's supposed to be sage green, but it turned out to be duck egg blue. But I like the color anyway, so it's fine.
Yeah.
So yeah, with him involved in the first 2, that was felt real family thing as well. Yeah, it's just a very personal thing. The whole project is.
And what about the future then, Doug? So if you make music, I know you're not making new music at the minute. You're using old bits of music that you've got and kind of doing what you need to do with them. But in terms of making new music ever again, if it wasn't so personal, is it still the case? Would you still want to be Doug Tolley and Doug does everything from start to finish? Is that a choice creatively forever, or is that just a choice for now?
Yeah, I mean, I've in the past, you work with other people, or you I used to be in a band years ago, but when you kind of want to have a bit of creative control about what you do,
yeah,
and somebody else has as well, and it's how you mesh all that together. I mean, I work on my own, and I work on my own for a reason. And the same with music as well. It's like everyone comes with so many different ideas, unless someone actually takes the sort of lead, as in saying, well, this is what I'd like.
Yeah.
I just found working musically with other people a bit tricky, whereas I could just have control over the whole damn thing. And it's, from do the mixing. I don't do the mastering because I've never done that and I don't want to mess it up. So I get it professionally mastered, but
yeah,
I do all the mixing of everything myself, and it's all me, warts and all, I think, really. I may not get everything right. I don't try to listen back to it all that much because I'll just find things that I've done wrong with it. So you've got to stop at some point, otherwise you tinker. Lack of ability to work with other people, I think, is the probably the main reason, because I'm on my own for most of the time at work, really. So I'm just happy in my own company doing my own thing. Before I started making Oscillations, which is my first EP, I had recorded several songs which were more guitar based, where I was playing the guitar, and it was lots of reverse reverb, so it's sort of shoegazy, but I actually had a drum machine, so I use a drum machine, so it's more conventional music. And I thought I was getting somewhere, and you send it out to a few people, and you say, what do you think about this? And yeah, that's good. And then I needed to free up space on the laptop because it was just going really, really slowly, and like I said, it's ancient. So I thought I deleted something, and I deleted all the music that I'd spent best part of a year doing. So that all went, and then I pretty much started again and started off at a completely different angle, and that's how Oscillations came along.
Fate.
So, yes, I reckon it was, because the old stuff was crap. So, and I did sort of half save something. I listened to it recently, and I can't get away with the guitar, drum machine, and me playing bass or whatever it was. It didn't sound great,
And isn't it funny to think, what if you hadn't deleted that? What would you? How many years ago was that?
Probably 3 years, I suppose.
Yeah. What would you have been releasing now? What would you have been making now?
Not that. I don't. Nothing.
Not that. You got there eventually.
I wouldn't have. I wouldn't have released that. That was no way good enough to be released.
No. In general, what's your drive? What's your motivation to create, to make music?
It's all to do with the pedals. It's just you're messing about with pedals. Something good happens, you record it, and you turn it into a song after recording.
What's your motivation for that then, Doug? So you're clearly a guy that likes pedals.
Yeah.
Why?
Because you can just make the coolest stuff with the smallest amount of musical ability, I think.
Why would you sit in the room? I'm guessing that's your music room where you do all your stuff. Why would you work your backside off all day, every day, physically, which, your job's a physical job.
Yeah.
You got family, you got kids. Why would you then come home and invest your own time into doing this?
I think part of it is just you want your kids to look at you and think, actually, Dad's pretty cool. Part of it was that.
I love it. Yeah.
Part of it is, I'm 46, so I want myself to feel like I'm doing something really cool.
Yeah.
And I'm not ashamed of saying that. I've been just interested in music for such a long time. I just wanted to be a part of releasing music, and I want to be an artist, if you want to use that in inverted commas.
Yeah.
But I just want to do something cool before I get too old to do something cool. And I can still be looked at, and it sounds totally vain. It sounds awful, but I just wanted to do it before you'd sort of, you get past it.
Yeah.
Midlife crisis.
No, I appreciate the honesty, right?
But then it was the timing of things. It was the timing that, I met Joel. It was a timing of, it's like the biggest catalyst really was when he came over and did the Thermae documentary.
I watched that again the other day.
Did you?
Yeah.
And just being in real world studios.
Yeah, looks amazing.
It was that was like the penny dropped then. It was like, this is what I want to do. This is what I want to be involved in, just being in the studio and, just watching what the engineer does and the producer does, and just watching that and the recording and this massive desk that you're looking like, what the hell does that do? And you're playing with pedals all day. And then the end of it, it's just, that was the environment that I really wanted to be involved in.
Yeah.
But that's never going to happen if you don't do it yourself. So it was like, well, I'll just do it myself. So I'll build my own studio. So if it wasn't for that meeting, with Joel, and I met Nobs for the first time there.
Yeah.
And just seeing them in action and just being there, it was like, this is what I want to be doing. So I enrolled on a music production course in Oxford. The DJ Gym is what it was called. It was based on electronic dance music. He said they'll do all sorts of music production there. So it's like transferable skills.
Yeah.
So I did that. It was over a series of months. It wasn't a long course, but
what sort of thing did you do then, Doug? What was that? What was
just like building a song, and he just bombarded me with all the things that you can do with it. And some of it went in, which I still remember. And then I didn't do the advanced course. This was just the basic course to get you started, because I didn't have a clue what I was doing. So just got this basic course, and you had to make a song, which was awful, but you had to do it. But it was just learning what it all is in Ableton, really. So it's just focused towards Ableton, and that just gave me a bit of a leg up. And then after that, I was like, right, I'm just going to do it on my own. But the catalyst really was meeting Joel and Nobs and being in the studio.
And how did that come about? I know obviously they were over. I must have seen that video probably about 10 times. In fact, I showed my wife it to show her you. I was telling her like all my plans for the week. I was like, I got this. We got a joint calendar. So she's like, who's Doug? And I said, oh, Doug's. And she's heard your record. She's heard Crumbs before. I played it in the car several times.
All right.
I said, oh, Doug, he's the guy that blah blah blah. I said, I'll show you, Doug. So I put the video on. We sat here, right here, watching it. How did that come about then? How did you end up being there? I don't know, what were you, like their personal guide or chaperone? I don't know.
It started off, I was just a customer. I bought Gravitas, like I said, in 2015, and I sent Joel an email and just said, this is the best thing I've ever heard. And we just sort of communicated a few emails backwards and forwards, and we had some sort of shared life experiences, which we kind of connected over. And I've been pestering him for the last 7 or 8 years with lots of emails and stuff. So, and then he said he was coming over to the UK to do the Thermae mini documentary. And he was just asking me about what would be the best place to go in Bath and to get guitars, and he could use any equipment that I had. But I just said, shall I just pick you up from the airport? So I just picked him up from Heathrow, and we drove to Bath, and I just sort of hung around with them for a couple of days. They walked around, did filming, and so I just spent a couple of days with them, which is fantastic. Just had a whale of a time.
Yeah.
And then when it came to going to NAMM as well, I think it was Nobs' idea. He said, oh, Doug, I'd love this, going to NAMM. So I got invited to NAMM 2020. I think I just went there mainly to spend time with them, hang out really, but I ended up just working on demonstrating the pedals really on the booth. So that worked out really well, because just you're in heaven really, just showing people pedals and explaining pedals to them and stuff, and it just all kind of fell into place really.
And that makes sense, doesn't it? Right? If you're, if I know nothing about Chase pedals, which, let's be honest, if you don't know anything about them, when you start finding out about them, they can be quite intimidating to start with.
Yeah.
I won't even go down that rabbit hole, but I could spend another hour asking you all about your trip to Amsterdam. And I watched it out again the other day. I was like, I can't believe he's been in Paul David's house. That's absolutely insane.
Yeah, he was the nicest bloke you could ever meet. He was so lovely, and it's just like a privilege to be there. Yeah, with his family and stuff, because they didn't know me. They obviously knew Joel and Nobs and everybody else and Tyler, but they didn't know me. But I got welcomed in, and we just stood around having a drink and talking and stuff. So it was a real privilege to be there, and they're just lovely people. So enjoyed it.
Awesome. And it is nice, isn't it, when people are nice? It's
nice to be nice. I think people respond to it. It's just, there's so many attitudes or egos and stuff like that. But you just go in with none of that, and you just go in to have a chat. I mean, I'm really good at small talk. The kids just take the mick out of me, but I'm like the small talk king because I just ask questions. I'll just ask questions all the time. Yeah. And you're just showing interest in who they are and what they're doing.
Yeah, of course.
Everywhere I go, we'll always talk about gardening. It's like I was talking to Paul Davids about his garden, and his wife does the gardening. So I'd be talking to her about the garden. And everywhere you go, as soon as you find out that you're a gardener, someone's got a question.
Of course, yeah.
How do you get moss out of the lawn, or what do you do with your roses, or whatever it may be? So it's a really it's a good way in. It's an icebreaker in some ways.
Yeah,
a gardener. So.
Yeah. We're gonna talk a bit more, Doug, about being an independent artist. So not only is it all Doug, but you're not funded or backed by any, not that I'm aware of, any record label or anything like that. Or promotion company or anything like that. Is that right?
No, it's all me, all my own money, and all my own everything, really.
We're going to flip the coin. We'll start with the downside. So what's the hardest part of being an independent artist?
Doing the music's easy. Actually making the music is a doddle. I find that the music that I do, and once something, that's the easy part of it. Paying to get the record out, because I wanted to get things mastered. I want to get it mastered properly, because that's like the final piece. So you want to get it professionally mastered. So, that costs. And then distribution, digitally is like a small expense. That's not much, but you can sort of, I think it's the paying for stuff really. With the last ones, I had to sell pretty much, 2/3 of my pedals to pay to get the records out. That was going on the assumption that I wasn't going to sell any. So I think, the paying for it, the self-promotion aspect, I find quite difficult.
Yeah.
Getting people to listen. Having people's time is really hard.
Yeah.
Particularly when your songs are 10 minutes long and they don't really do a lot. So my son said, your songs are like one long noise, he said. So that's what I put on my Bandcamps, and just saying it's like one long noise. Because there's nothing snappy about it. There's not that sort of few seconds at the start of the song where you think, okay, that's grabbed me. Yeah. You've got to be in for the long haul. You've got to be in the right frame of mind. You've got to be in the right mood. So getting people to listen is really, really hard. So just getting people's attention I find difficult, because as you can tell, I can talk about stuff quite a lot, but talking about me and promoting myself, I find that difficult. It's just, it's not an easy thing to do.
Why do you find that difficult, Doug? Because obviously we've never spoken personally before, other than we've spoken a lot over Instagram or whatever, but you're not shy about talking about yourself. You're not shy about talking about every element of it. So why do you find that difficult?
I don't know. It's just it's that showing offy thing. It's like a showing off. Having a chat with someone is different to saying, here I am, listen to this, or aren't I wonderful, or any of that sort of stuff. I can chat about stuff because we're just having a chat. So it's like we might as well be in a pub just talking about things. But actually pushing yourself out there, I find it difficult because of my lack of musical knowledge. I always feel a bit of a fraud. Like we used to go to chapels in Milton Keynes, a music shop. So I just go in there and I want to play a guitar. I never did, just because you get in there, you get someone shredding. And I just I just hated that level of exposure, I suppose it is.
Yeah.
I mean, I do hide behind the pedals. I know that, and I'm perfectly happy with doing that. But
but even then, Doug, you saying that, so you basically got imposter syndrome is what you're talking about, right?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
You're underselling yourself, in my opinion. I know the stuff that you're talking about. It's not easy to understand, and there's a lot of even guitar-based music where people can shred, but actually the stuff that's the best stuff is the stuff they play that's really straightforward and simple that just connects. So I wouldn't undersell yourself. I think you're making a genre of music that isn't easy to make. It isn't easy to make.
I think the nice thing about doing the long songs are just like with a Casio keyboard, you just think it's so basic, but also if you've just played just two notes together and it has this really nice little sort of pulsing rhythm to it, which sort of just does gradually evolve. Then as soon as you start putting that through pedals, it's just like, I love repetition. I just really like repetition. I could just listen to the same kind of thing, just gently pulsing, gently moving, gently changing for ages, because I work on my own. I listen to a lot of music all the time, so but I listen probably about 10-20% ambient stuff, and today I was listening to a lot of Sleaford Mods, a lot of Idols, a lot of bands from the 90s like June 44 or Shellac. I like Shellac. I love Slint. I really love Mogwai. I'm a massive Mogwai fan. I think that comes across in a couple of songs in Crumbs, but Yeah, so I don't listen to a massive amount of sort of ambient music, but a lot of shoegaze as well. So
Yeah, really interesting.
But then I just love aggressive, shouty stuff, like this band called A Minor Forest from San Francisco in the mid-90s. They just shout and shout, and I think it's fantastic. It's so cathartic. Listening to it, it's cathartic.
Yeah.
I just like that sort of release, like Idols as well. It's like this sincerity. I just like sincerity in music, which is what I want.
Yeah.
Sort of convey with the personal aspects of what I put into it. I'm being sincere. I'm not trying to be anybody else. I'm not trying to make music for anybody else. It's all for me. And if someone else likes it, then I'm chuffed.
And talking to Mogwai, they've just released dates for the UK.
Yeah, I did see that. Yeah,
February. They're my first band that got me into this world. When I was
I mean, it was about 90. What was it, or 96 or 97? I bought Summer. I heard Summer for the first time, and then it just did feel like a lot of things changed because we'd had my sort of shoegazy spell, and then Britpop came along and just messed everything up. Then I was into grunge. I used to like Nirvana and other sort of, I used to love Sonic Youth, so a lot of American bands. And in the mid-90s came along, Shellac, and then a load of bands off Quartet Records, like say June 44, like I said, Tortoise, and all that. Slint. I was a massive Slint fan.
Yeah.
And then Mogwai came along at a point where I'd kind of exhausted a lot of other options, and then it just totally blew me away. And then their first album is, I was listening to that in the car today. It's just magic,
classic.
Yeah, absolutely brilliant. And they've changed, but they've kept a really high standard of music. And
I think their last couple of records are brilliant.
The production of them is different, but it's so thick and it's just so full. And fantastic, really good.
Why do you do the vinyl, Doug? Why were you so passionate about doing it? 'Cause you've done that for, like, when you said that you had to sell half your pedal collection, like, that's basically, they're your instruments. So what,
I've got those left. I'm not going to go short, but no, you sell a microcosm and you sell an ecosystem, and that's like 2/3 of the way to getting a record out, really.
Right.
It's just the physicality. You're holding your product. That's the fruits of your labor. So you're holding it. I mean, to be honest, streaming means nothing to me. Downloads mean nothing to me, really. Although I do listen to downloads when I'm at work, but it's like it's the physical result of all your hard work, because everything's just leading up to releasing a record. That's the only thing I wanted to do. And obviously through COVID, you just couldn't get a record out because of the delays, and then the product itself, the vinyl, the raw materials were so hard to come by, and then labor shortages and everything. So it's like, you got to wait a year to get a record out. So but I couldn't sit on it for that long. So when Crumbs came out digitally, I knew it was going to be at least a year until it actually came out on vinyl. I couldn't sit and wait. I just had to get it out so I could move on to the next thing. Otherwise, I would never do anything else again.
So you've half jokingly told us about your love of gear, Doug, and the vast array of pedals that are probably directly in front of you. Talk us through your look at the smile on your face when you look down. What's your favourite gear?
Oh, it changes and it varies. But at the minute it's habit, because it's the newest one that I've got.
Yeah.
It just gives you so much, and it's unexpected and it's quirky, and it's just really, really hands-on. But I always love the Cooper FX Outward. That's on every single record of mine as well, particularly this envelope mode where it just has a bit of a slow bloom into it, and then it just holds this note, but it holds it, but it moves it. It's got a real kind of pulsy, it's got pulses, it shifts and it moves, and it just, it has a rhythm to it. When you have the sort of the clock speed turn really, really low, it's sort of lo-fi and grainy, but I just use that all the time as just like your bass note, you like, and then you can just do stuff over the top of it. Then I love the Empress stuff, like the ecosystem and the reverb.
Never played it.
Fantastic. Again, I bought those, particularly the reverb, because of the reverse reverb algorithms. Are really, really good.
What's the reverse reverb thing then, Doug? Because you've mentioned reverse reverb about 15 times in the past.
Oh God, I'm just obsessed with it. It's because I've got a Yamaha FX 500, which is what Slowdive used, back in the day in the early 90s for their reverse reverb. And My Bloody Valentine, was a fan of My Bloody Valentine going back to the early 90s as well. So it's not that you want to emulate them, but I just love the way it sounds. And I had an old MIDI Verb 2, which is what they use, and SPX 90, I think, the Yamaha rack unit. So I used to have a lot of rack units. So I just got a real thing. That's my soft spot, is reverse reverb. So I haven't tried the Context, that the Red Panda Context version 2. That reverse reverb on there is supposed to be really good on that, but I just obsessed, a minor obsession with it really. And then you can have a reverb at the front, like I always had Dark Star at the front, because that's always a good first in chain reverb, just because it's the sort of Cooper FX side was really, really good.
Doug, you're going down the pedals. I could.
Sorry about that.
No, it's good. I could sit here for another 5 hours talking about pedals. Now you mentioned the Dark Star, and I want to just ask you a million questions about Dark Star, because it's one of my favorite pedals as well. One of the few pedals I've sold and bought again, and I'll never sell it again, because it's brilliant. And if I was making music like yours, I think it'd just be a staple like of your kit, because you can do so much with it with not
before
a lot of
fuzz as well. Before fuzz, it's absolutely brilliant. So first in chain, it's really, really good. But then I look at Therme, and you just think, you just play just delay on its own, just sounds so fantastic. And
all right, Doug. All right,
that's like cold dead hand stuff. That is.
Yeah. All right, Doug. I know. Yeah, I know. Let's just keep rubbing it in.
Sorry about that.
In terms of Doug making music and releasing music, what does success look like for you?
There are lots of different answers to this one, but the main one would be, I think, just be happy with what I've achieved and be proud of what I put out, because every single one I'm proud of in a different way. But it would just do the best that I possibly can with the equipment that I've got at that particular time, and just have a huge amount of pride in what you do. And you can sit there and you can listen to it and you think, actually, that's pretty bloody good. And I'm chuffed with that. The other version would be selling records or whatever. It's just like you want to make your money back. But then you come back to the original plan of, actually, I'm just really proud of what I've achieved and because, you can't take that away from me now, because it's out there and I'm happy with it.
Awesome.
If that makes sense.
No, it makes total sense. Cool. Well, Doug, thanks for joining us today. And I'm going to link in all of your bits and pieces down the bottom for people to find their way to 9 is the Level. And me and everyone else watching, I'm sure, is looking forward to whatever is next for you. All of the links to Doug releases so far are down in the comments, so please feel free to check those out.